Hi, everybody. If you're like me and live in the Mid Atlantic area and like to go exploring, hiking, and other things outdoors, you know how much of a challenge that can be during the summertime. So, today on Life with Zach, I wanted to bring some tips and share those with you on how you can still get a good experience going out and about exploring, hiking, and visiting the outdoors during those hot, humid summer months. So, the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the heat. Now, everyone knows that the heat in the Mid Atlantic area, especially if the farther south you go, is a different type of heat than you get in a lot of other parts of the country because we have something called humidity. Having been out west into some like desert areas, they have pretty high temperatures there, but they don't have the humidity. So when you go hiking in the Mid Atlantic, Virginia, where I live, you're going to experience humidity. And you have to be prepared for that to deal with the double threat of the humidity and the heat. And three important things that I'll say you can do to be prepared are hydrate, um, find shade and enjoy it, and rest along your hike or your exploration. So, hydration is, of course, the most important. You want to be sure that you're hydrating not just the day of the hike, but time before and the time after. If you try to go into an exploration outdoors in the summertime in Virginia or the Mid Atlantic and you are not hydrated, you're going to be in a world of trouble because you're not going to be able to make up enough during the hike for what you're losing while you're outdoors. So you want to be drinking plenty of water beforehand, and then after the hike or the exploration's over, you want to be drinking water afterwards to make up for what you lost. Because to be honest, you're going to sweat and you're going to lose a lot of fluid that way and just through your skin and stuff while walking. So just be aware that you need to be hydrated before, during, and after the hike. You also need to take advantage of shade. Okay, so if you go out in an area that's in the woods and there's areas with shade, you need to take advantage of that to help cool yourself while you're hiking. You're not going to be able to go on a continuous, 6, 7, 8 mile hike without needing to take advantage of that shade. So be sure to plan out areas that have shade if it's going to be very hot, hikes that you can take advantage of that, and just areas that you can take advantage of that during the hot part of the day. And then, of course, rest. Being able to get rest in advance, but more importantly, resting while you're on your hike. The heat and stuff can really get to you before you even realize it. So you need to take the chance to rest while on your hike or your exploration. Stopping, sitting down in the shade, enjoying some water, just enjoying what's around you, because if not, you're going to really run the risk of something happening to you while you're on your hike. At the very least, you're not going to enjoy your hike as much because you're going to be overheated. So if you take advantage of the opportunities to rest, stop while you're out on your exploration, you're not only going to have the benefits of being able to go farther, but you're also going to have the benefits of being able to enjoy what's around you more because you're stopping and taking the time to see what's going on and experience that. The next tip that you want to take advantage of while you're hiking out in the summertime or the hot weather is to be able to wear proper clothing. Okay, so in the summertime, it's really weird in some areas in terms of the temperature can vary a lot between the morning, the afternoon, and then into the evening. So a lot of people may go out in the morning and let's say it's 50 or 60 degrees. And by the time you hit noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, it's 90 degrees. And then by the time, if you're still out as it starts to get dark, you're back to that 50, 60 degree weather. So a lot of people get stuck because they plan for the weather at the time of the hike they went on instead of the weather throughout the day. So you want to wear clothes, layers, and things that prepare you for that type of weather. And of course, again, layers is the most important thing that you can think about in terms of your clothing. Being able to add and remove clothes based on what the temperature is like is going to make a big difference. This is incredibly important also if you're hiking into higher elevations, because if you're out and about in those areas, then you have to realize that the temperature is going to vary dramatically as you increase in elevation. So, I've gone out and about and started, and it may be 90 degrees, and by the time you get to the top of where you're going, it may only be 65 or 70 degrees, and just that difference in that temperature really can affect you. So you need to be cognizant of the weather, of the time you're going out, the time you're going to be out, the time you're going to finish, and the places that you're going, and dress appropriately, and layers of clothing that are going to help you deal with the variations in temperature. Another thing that you're going to want to be concerned about and deal with is sunscreen and shading yourself from the sun as much as possible. So wearing things like hats, because you don't want to deal with sunburn and the skin damage that can cause. And that's really easy to happen here in Virginia and the Mid-Atlantic. The sun is out and it's bright. Even on cloudy days, those UV rays and stuff can really have an impact on you. And I'll say from experience that really bad sunburns can happen very easily. We went to Lake Moomaw recently, and I would say it was very cloudy. I decided to take a walk up the shoreline of the lake, and I got up to where I was going to stop, and the sun came out. And by the time I got back to apply the sunscreen that I needed and should have put on before, I already had gotten sunburned. And it took me a week or so to get over that, because it was a really bad sunburn that happened really in 10 or 15 minutes as the weather dramatically changed. So just be prepared. Bring hats to shade yourself, and utilize sunscreen. Have it with you no matter what the weather looks outside, because that can change in an instant, and you need to be able to protect yourself from the sun. Another tip that I'm going to give you for hiking in this area in the summer is to start early, okay? Now, there's two reasons for that. Number one is, again, because of the heat. It's a lot cooler in the mornings when you go out, and you're going to be able to enjoy your hike a lot better. But the second reason for that is to avoid the crowds. Virginia is a very popular hiking spot. And I know the same thing with other states in the Mid-Atlantic, because we have easy access to places like DC that a lot of tourists come through and then go out, fan out to our national parks and our state parks and our national forests and things where these trails are at. So if you don't go out early, you run the big risk of dealing with huge crowds as you're trying to go on your exploration. And that can be anywhere. With the internet, people are finding even the most remote spots to go to. So if you don't want to deal with a lot of people in your way, in your photos, crowds and stuff, especially at popular places, but even at remote areas, you need to get out there early, or you're going to be really kind of overwhelmed at some of these places. Recently, we went to an area off the Skyline Drive, which is one of the huge tourist draws in our area, and we started really early, and it was a popular waterfall area, so we basically walked into the waterfall. There weren't a whole lot of people there. We continued on our hike, and then of course we looped around and came back. And when we came back late afternoon versus early in the morning, as we were wrapping up our hike, that place was packed. And had we not gone early, we would not have had an enjoyable experience at that waterfall. So you just need to realize that starting early helps you deal with the heat, and starting early helps you deal with crowds. Another tip that you need to consider before going out on a hike or an exploration in the summertime in the Mid-Atlantic is planning for wildlife. There's going to be a lot of wildlife out, things like bears, deer, other things that you traditionally think about, but also things like snakes and bugs. They can get really bad in the Mid-Atlantic during the summertime. Okay, so you need to be sure to take bug spray with you. Utilize bug spray. If not, you're just going to have a miserable experience, because the mosquitoes are just going to eat you up. Okay, so no matter where you're at, you just need to realize that there are going to be bugs there that are going to drive you crazy unless you're prepared. And then you're going to end up with like 10,000 bug bites on you, and that's going to be your memory from your trip, and you don't want that. But again, also snakes are a big issue. There's poisonous snakes all over the mountains of Virginia, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Maryland, So you need to be on the lookout for those snakes when you're out and about and just avoid them. A snake doesn't want to attack you, but it will if it feels threatened. So you just need to be aware of your surroundings and things so that you don't end up stepping on one or stepping near one and ending up with a dangerous snake bite. I've been a part of a lot of responses to hikers who get snake bites and have to be carried out of the woods. I've read a lot about tragic incidences where that happens, and people unfortunately don't survive that experience. So you don't want to be that person that ends up with some type of horrific injury from a poisonous snake bite. And I don't say that to scare you away from hiking, because you can do it really safely. You just need to be aware of your surroundings when you're walking and be dressed appropriately. So if you run across a snake, there's less chance of something happening. If you have open-toed shoes versus hiking boots and you're out in the woods and you meet a snake, you may end up with a much different experience, depending on your footwear, depending on your clothing and stuff. So just be aware that you're going to deal with not only your traditional wildlife that a lot of people think about, but also things like the bugs and snakes that could really end up causing you to have a negative experience while you're out on your hike or your exploration. And the final thing that I will say you need to plan for is overgrowth. Okay, things grow really fast in the mid-Atlantic during the spring and the summer season, especially if there's rain. You're going to come across trails and things that are really overgrown. You're going to come across trees, you're going to come across grasses and weeds and everything that's basically going to be consuming a lot of these areas, and a lot of places ends up growing into the trail itself, because no matter how hard some of these places work to keep those clear, overgrowth and stuff happens in the summertime, and you're going to have to be prepared to walk through stuff like that if you're out on the trail. And that can also obscure trail markers, directional signage, and things like that, making it harder to find your way and increasing your chance of getting lost. So you just want to be aware that you're going to be dealing with stuff like that. Some mitigation things that you can take advantage of are, number one, again, wear the proper clothing so you're not walking through, let's say, poison ivy in shorts that could cause you to have a negative experience. And also, have maps and appropriate things that are going to help you find where you're going without necessarily having to rely on trail markers, because if you're looking for a trail marker and it's covered by overgrowth, you're not going to be able to see it during the summertime. You may not even see the trail itself. So just be aware of your surroundings and what you feel comfortable with going into the woods, and realize you may not have the same experience you had, let's say, in the wintertime when something wasn't overgrown, or when someone was reporting on that on a review or a website or something. So you just need to be aware of all these tips and stuff when dealing with things here in the mid-Atlantic during the summer out on exploration. So again, dealing with the heat, wearing proper clothing, protecting yourself from the sun, starting at a decent time of day to avoid crowds, planning for wildlife, things like bugs and snakes and your traditional animals, and then planning for overgrowth that is going to impact your hiking or exploration experience. So if you've enjoyed this episode of Life with Zach, this is part of our series about explorations. I encourage you to hit the like button, leave a comment with any other tips that you have related to hiking in the Mid-Atlantic during the summertime. And as always, if you want, hit the subscribe button to get the latest videos as they come out. I really appreciate your tuning in for this, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day.